You're listening to the Not Your Lawyer podcast with Mona Reza.
Welcome, Shireen. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mona.
So for our audience, Shireen and I met, and this is very relevant to her company. Shireen's mom and my mother-in-law are besties, like old school best friends. They both grew up in Kashmir. Their husbands were both physicians. They came very young to the United States and raised families. And my husband, Raj, and Shireen were raised together like siblings. And my husband does not have any sisters, any biological sisters. So Shireen and her sister, Orfa, are the closest things to sisters that my husband has, and she has become a dear friend and truly family to me as well. And I'm so happy to have you here with me, Shireen. Thank you so much.
It's such a journey. Thanks for having me, and I love that I am here with you doing this wonderful interview, and I really want to commend you on sort of entering this chapter of your life where you're just embracing everything that's meaningful in women's lives at this stage, which is a lot.
That's what it's about for all of us. I will tell you, when we were young, Shireen and I are about the same age. Shireen's a little bit younger. I had health issues, so I had to have children very quickly. Right out of law school, I had kids. I had Intra, then I had Jenna a few years later, and my husband was in residency, very, very busy. And really navigating all of that was so hard for me that the path of least resistance was just working very part-time and focusing on the girls and just doing whatever I could to make it through.
Yes.
And often we would go to New York, and Shireen lived in Manhattan at the time. And I admired her so much because it was almost like I would look at Shireen and think, this could have been, the path that when you're 14 or 15, you think that that's what I want to be. I want to be a tax attorney living in New York and having this amazing condo and doing these really exciting things. And for me, Shireen was that person. We would go and she had it all. She had the beautiful condo. She was at Goldman Sachs. She always looked amazing, always made time for us, but was doing all of these really great things, charitable work and her own work. And that, like, how long were you there? How long were you in New York after college?
I became an adult and established myself as an adult in New York. So like 20 years before post-COVID, we moved out, like 20 plus years, actually. Do the math.
Yeah. And what I ask everybody, especially people who have had a big career pivot like you, when you were growing up, what did you think you were going to be, or what was your goal? Was it exactly where you ended up when you were in New York?
In our immigrant family, there was so much attention around, like, what are you going to be? Like, very, very young. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And then if my father was a physician, as many people are from South Asia, basically. I was like kind of open to it, but I grew up with my dad in residency. They had me very young. So I saw a lot of the hardship that perhaps I wouldn't have seen had he sort of had us later, had my parents had us later. It really, like, it stuck with me as being this, like, oh, that's really exhausting and debilitating, actually. But I was still open to it. But then when I got into high school and I started taking physics and chemistry, and those were not coming very naturally to me, and my dad was like, well, chemistry was my favorite subject. I was like, you know what? I might not be cut out for this. So I would quickly had to, like, pivot as a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old and be like, well, what am I going to do? And it was just like this business. I don't know how we got exposed. It was the 80s, it was like the decade of extreme, wasteful, superficial things. And so I was like, oh, okay, there was a lot of like growing business personalities. And I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. And my dad was very much like, you have to be independent. That's why you should be a doctor, because we can help you. It wasn't sort of like you have to be a doctor to be prestigious. It was like, yeah, I can only help you. And how, as immigrants, how can we survive if you don't have family help? That was the mentality. And I respected that. But I was like, I got to do something else. So I got this idea of business, and I grew into it versus just being charmed by it. I felt the need to stick to something because you need purpose, a career purpose, very young in our culture and in our family, and really more to do with my dad. So that's kind of how the idea evolved. And when I graduated college, I was like, well, the place to go is New York. And I loved that idea. And so it just all sort of fit of like, oh, I'll find a job. I'll be in New York. It'll be a great experience, and I'll kind of take it from there. So that's really that's how the journey began for me.
Absolutely. And it was a great journey. I loved watching it. Was there a moment or a season or something in your life where you thought to yourself, I don't want to do this anymore, or I can't keep doing it this way?
It's funny you talk about you visiting us and you having your kids early. And I always wanted a family. It was never like, oh, maybe, maybe not. I was just one of those, just firmly knew I wanted a family. I loved kids. And so just like you see me and you're like, oh, that's what I want to do. I would see you were one of the few people who had kids that early because you needed to do that.
Yeah.
And so I really got to see like, oh, wow, that joys of being young and having your kids and just kind of doing that and being in it. And so it was always like there. And my career was so intense and it had many phases. So in the beginning, I was very young and I was working on Wall Street. And they're not just high pressure. I had no problem. I had no problem working late. I had no problem meeting high expectations or feeling like that's okay. But the environment was what you would now term it as toxic. You know, these were really toxic environments and they were just normalized toxic environments. We didn't have a word for it. Maybe having a word for it would help me kind of conceptualize it. So I internalized a lot of that toxicity, but was like, God, this is not me. I was surrounded by people who were like, this is just what I want to do. They've known it since they're 5. I didn't feel that way about it. So it was like a big sacrifice for me. So kind of in the middle of this 2-year analyst program, which was very hard to get into actually at Goldman Sachs. It only took a few people. So there was this weight of like, I can't leave this, you know, but I was like, oh, I'm just going to go interview. And I interviewed. And then I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm interviewing for. And I remember having a conversation with my father and he's like, it's a 2-year program. You're 6 months in, you can't leave, you know. And I think people will be like, well, you were an adult and your dad's telling you what to do. I'm just like, I respected him. And there was just something about the way he said it and something about, well, like, I don't even know what I want to transition to if I left.
Yeah.
So he was like, you know what, I'm going to stick it out. And I did stick it out. And it was a little torturous. And I don't know what the right advice is, but I do feel very happy that I stuck it out because I had understood the industry a little better. And I want to go to what is called the buy side. I was on doing research and now I wanted to go actually be on the side where you invested people's money and studied stocks. I thought that was great. I understood what that was all about. It was very different than when I took my first job. And it was very easy to land a good job because of where I came from. And back then, if you didn't stay someplace 5 years, everyone was like, what's wrong with you? You know, unless like, okay, it was a 2-year training program. That's different. It's a platform, something else. Nowadays, it's like, you better not be in the same job after 3 years. That's like, you're stuck. So it was very different mentality. It was like, you have to stay in one place. You have to prove yourself. You have to show that people want to keep you. So when I transitioned to the next job, that became what turned out to be my career. It's where I met just a wonderful investor who was very much my mentor. I grew in that job. I became a partner. My whole career was really established there and I had a really great career and I was able to find this little special place where the core values of the firm were great. Now in hindsight, again, another word we don't use as much back then was the burnout. It's so intense. There were many times where I was like, I feel like I'm burning out. I don't know what you want to call it. I feel really weak for feeling that way. And at one point, kind of 6 or 7 years in, I sort of evaluated. I think I want to do something else, but I kind of hit the same thing of like, I don't even know what that is. Where would I go? What would I do? This is as good for me as it's going to get in this world. Do I want to do something different? And in hindsight, it was much more of an emotional misalignment, maybe with like where I wasn't, you know, I knew I wanted a family. I wasn't solving a lot of these other issues. I was just like, I had a great job. That was the other thing. It wasn't a job. In my head, I was always like, I want a career, you know, I want to grow someplace. I want to be valuable. I want to learn things. And I had that. So I think I was just not able to reconcile. Why was I not able to work on these other parts of my life? And I was putting all of that kind of stress into, well, if I leave my job, it'll solve some problem. And I did not leave. I really stayed there till my boss ended up retiring and I got married and then it was COVID. We all know what happened after that. So even in hindsight, when I reflect on these periods that you're talking about of wanting to transition when doing things, what would have I done differently? Honestly, I would have gotten therapy at age 21.
Absolutely.
I really mean it. Because your friends can only help you so much. Your friends look at you and they just, even when they think you're amazing, they pedestal you in this way that feels like intense. If they think, why are you in this job? You feel like, well, you don't understand what it's like to be from an immigrant family. I had more like the responsibilities of just in my own head, you know, that they maybe could not relate to if they weren't immigrants. Support is not different than someone's helping you solve where you are in your emotional space.
Huge fan of therapy. And I will say the part that a lot of people don't understand about physicians and being part of a doctor's family. Because I look at my girls, the downside of having young parents is you have parents that did not have a lot of money and were struggling financially, even though we have these degrees.
Right.
I'm handcuffed because in residency, you're making like nothing. In fellowship, a little bit more.
Absolutely.
By the time we finished fellowship, we had both the girls, and you're just like feeling so guilty that I could probably be contributing more financially, but oh my gosh, these kids never see their other parent.
Yeah.
I need to be here. Something you've said, like when I look at our girls now, Jenna is the director of football operations at USC, very intense job, and is in med school despite, my husband trying to convince her not to do it. She was going to be a doctor. And I see their relationship with money and security is so different than ours was because they've had that experience and they've had the therapy. In many ways, they know how to balance it in a way that I couldn't even imagine when I was drowning. As I think, like for you too, like you're in it.
Yes.
And
well,
something feels
guidance.
wrong,
I
but
did not to interrupt you, but you are having these experiences. They're hard. And I know you've always been great about sharing what's appropriate, age appropriate with your children to teach them. You were constantly teaching them. So by the time they get to adulthood, they have so much already processed about how to enter the world. Our parents were struggling in a new country, trying to understand how the heck are they supposed to not just make it work financially, but socially, emotionally, being far apart from their families. Like they couldn't even begin to help us emotionally in ways we can help our children as first generation,
Or understand the realities, right? I think my father-in-law, when they were weighing it, like he wants Jenna to be a doctor as well. I mean, Jenna faints at the sight of blood. Yeah. But he says to her that to have a successful medical practice, all you need is a stethoscope.
Yes.
That is just not true anymore. It's just not how medicine works in America. The business of medicine is a completely different podcast topic. I think it comes from a good place of wanting your children and grandchildren to benefit in the way that you did from this society and all it has to offer. Yeah. Your big pivot really was, I think, the move. When you left New York, when we went to visit you, it was, I thought, really cool to see Shireen because you got married. I had a full hysterectomy 2 weeks before your wedding. My timing ended like right there. And my girls were flower girls at your wedding. Yeah. And so then you started that season for yourself of family and all of that. And we visited you with Nora, your daughter Nora. And it was like a completely different Shireen and JD, the suburban version.
Well, there was a little in between that, like, it was so Groundhog Day that it almost doesn't feel like a phase, but it was actually a 4-year phase because I had gotten married in 2011. My boss said he's retiring in 2012. And I had said, oh, you know what? We want children. Like right away, because I got married at almost 40 years old by the time I got married. So I'm like, got to get to it, obviously, for all the obvious reasons, biologically speaking. And so I said, this is great. He's retiring. I'm not going to get another job. I had been working many, many years. I go really deep into one thing. I'm not a multitasker, so I was never the type who was like, I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to get a nanny. I'm going to manage. Like that just always felt like I can't do that. That's not me. That's not my personality. I don't do well in that situation. So I was like, when I have kids, I want to be home with them. I've waited this long. And so I didn't get another job after that, after my boss retired, thinking, this is going to happen pretty quick. I don't know why I thought it would happen quickly. I was basically at this point 40 years old. And it took 4 years to have a baby. 4 years of me not working, of me like just trying to get pregnant, of us being like, and now there's a lot more open information and people talk more about it. But again, even just in the last 10 years, it was not over discussed and fertility treatments were not really discussed. And I'm sitting here in La La Land around my fertility and, there was nothing wrong with me. I was just older. It was just my natural, it was all like kind of what you would say would be biologically appropriate. I learned a lot because one, I should have gotten another job. Like even if I took time off, there was no reason to just not pivot into something a little low key. And then by the time I was a couple years into getting pregnant, I kept thinking, well, I'm going to get pregnant. I'm going to get pregnant. You can quit your job when you get pregnant. You know what I mean? You don't need
or right at the end, like I did both times. Yep.
All these logical things of like, why did I think I didn't need to work like while I was even pregnant? I think I had worked for so many years and I was like, oh, I've transitioned. I'm done with work. I'm now going to have a family. And so there was a lot of rigidity in my compartmentalization. Again, a little therapy would have gone a long way. So once we had our daughter, I mean, that was, the universe gives you different gifts at different times, and just having her, such a gift. To have gone through that, and finally doesn't have to work out that way. I think we had to reconcile with like, oh, maybe it won't work out. We even put that whole experience more on a pedestal. Well, I'm definitely not getting a job. I'm definitely not going to go work 8 hours and then try to figure out what I'm going to have. I'm like, we're with her. We are with our daughter. We are raising our daughter. It was joyful for us. We both wanted children. This is not a commentary. Just please do not take it as a commentary.
Yeah, no, I know.
Life choices in any way, but I very much, just because of the struggle and the time it took me, we just wanted to be home with her. We started the business, COVID hit, and then we made this move to Philly. But there was just this 4 years of trying to get pregnant, finally getting pregnant, COVID happening, having to leave New York, just staying in New York, but like very separated, which was really hard. A family of 3, our daughter was 2. And I think all of that allowed the move to happen, to actually leave New York. My husband is a New Yorker. He's still recovering from psychologically from the move 4 years later. And even though our lifestyle is amazing, we made a great choice, especially as you get older and you've lived life and you analyze things a lot. Choices, you're always left with, well, what if we didn't? And you have this feeling of you can kind of control it. I think as you get older, you kind of still want to control things, but you realize how they're not controllable. And there's this tension over trying to make everything work and manage everything and make the best decision, but having all this wisdom around knowing that, it just doesn't work out that way necessarily.
100%. 100%. I love that, because we still do things. It's not that you're not scared. We do them even though we are. That level of faith, right? That you and your partner, you make that choice and we take that leap and amazing things can happen.
Exactly.
I love that a lot of this pivot, it was around motherhood, but it also involves your mother. I will intro that by saying, for those of you who don't know Kashmiri food, my family cannot eat in Indian restaurants. Like none of us. We just don't do it, because Kashmiri food is, personal opinion, the best Indian food you will ever have. And my mother-in-law and Shireen's mom do it at another level. It is just incredible. My mother-in-law actually cooks Kashmiri food, packs it, freezes it. She shipped it to LA because Jenna could not find anything comparable. So her grandmother did overnight delivery of paneer and kebabs. Jenna, in preparation, bought a bag of rice and some yogurt, waiting for it to arrive. And so, I mean, it is truly special. I mean, Shireen's going to tell you about her company, but I'm going to tell you that I don't know how she has done it, but in a little package, she has captured Safia Auntie's everything. It tastes like her mom's cooking. It was incredible. Tell us how that idea came to be.
Typically what happens, probably in a lot of Indian homes, is the kids don't really love the food. They want pizza. They want all the fun stuff. And then as they get older, they realize how good the food is. I was the 5-year-old that was like, I want my rice and Rogan Josh, please. I loved it. I devoured it. I ate all of it. I ate the spicy food. I ate the anchar, which is like our sort of Kashmiri kimchi. It's very spicy. I love chutneys. I mean, just like all of it. And, you take it for granted. You grow up, you eat this delicious food, and then you leave home and you go to college. And in the beginning, you're like, this is great. I get like the cafeteria. I can eat whatever I want. I stayed fairly local. So I did get my good fair share of my mom's cooking, which again, took for granted how much it was like kind of keeping me going. And by the time I got to New York, I was working on Wall Street. I ate dinner every night at work. I mean, that was just the little break before I continued like that last leg of work. So it was so unhealthy. What do you get at that point? There was no delivery. You had to like walk out and go get your food. And about a year in, or maybe less than 6 months in, I'm like, I need my mom's food. I'm losing my mind. I cannot eat like this. It wasn't even about the health. It was just like, I am so dissatisfied with eating. I'm obsessed. And I remember telling my mom about it. And it's so funny to hear your story about Akhtar Auntie with Jenna, but I was complaining to my mom, and she did exactly the same thing, and my requests were the same. It's so funny. Kashmiri paneer is the most special food. And she froze and FedExed to me. I don't even know how much it cost her. And
Jenna's was $250.
$50, like 25 years ago,
Yeah.
And sitting there devouring the food. And actually, that was a moment for me. I was only about 24 or 5, but I remember thinking, this is kind of pathetic, even though I was like enjoying every minute of it. It was the first time I realized I don't know how to cook. I think it always seems so hard and so daunting that I was like, I'm never going to be able to cook that. I'm only going to be able to eat that well at home. But that can't be. I clearly need this food. I clearly need to learn this food. So that really begun what was a decade-long process for me of actually learning to cook the meals. I would go home maybe one weekend a month. I would try to get my mom to show me. She never made the same thing twice. She had no idea about measurements. I was overwhelmed. There were so many steps, and I would never really get it down. I was in the kitchen with her. I was understanding the concepts. I was understanding how to use the spices. By 7 or 8 years later, I could make properly, with written recipes that I still have, my favorite dishes. And that was so important to me. This was not about legacy. It was just for me. JD and I would have, eventually when we met, we'd have amazing dinner parties. We'd cook the food. We'd spend like 3 days making it all and the whole thing. And it was a blast. And it wasn't until we had Nora and I wasn't working and JD, my husband, and I were like, well, we got to start a family business together. This is going to be our next thing. Everything clicked where I knew if I did not give my daughter this food regularly, at least a few times a week, and normal food, not entertaining food and your favorite dish all the time. She was young. She was like 6 months old. She was just starting to eat. And then by the time she was 2, she was eating really well. I was like, this is the time. And I was complaining to my mom, I can't do this step by step and spice by spice to make these dishes every day. It's just like not going to work. So she gave me a pre-measured spice packet where she's like, hey, just, here's Rogan Josh. Now just follow the steps since you already know how to make Rogan Josh. And it's a little bit of a cheat. You can marinate the meat in the spices, but it's going to be really delicious and pretty authentic. And it came out great. And I found myself cooking regularly. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is such a great idea. Part of why Kashmiri food is so good is because we actually use a lot more spices per dish than a typical Indian dish. And it's just going to eliminate the measuring, the buying of too much at once. It's just going to make everything super easy. So that was really how the whole thing started. And by then, this is like 2019, maybe late 2018. So my daughter is about 2.5. It was really solving a problem in our family. And it's just sort of thus begun the pathway of creating these single serve spices. So one packet would be for one dish. So you're done. You have all the spices. You have a few items that you need. But it's been a journey.
And no training in culinary or anything for either of you, right?
It's funny, like over these years, as we've evolved, as our family has grown, as I've gotten more experience, what is cooking? It sounds so simple. We all need to eat. But one of the things that's really the hardest part in terms of running this business, but the thing that actually motivates me the most is that culturally now, we just don't think of cooking for ourselves regularly as a necessity, which is with delivery, with busy work schedules, with great food. There's so many food cities beyond New York. So it's just harder and harder to treat planning and cooking for yourself as I have to do this. But I think from a health perspective, young people's health is deteriorating rapidly. Like you can eat in the best place. It's still kind of mass-produced food. They're probably reusing oils. You're not really picking what's in it that you need for your health. And so the cooking journey for me personally and what we're trying to share through Moji Masala is really igniting the home cook, getting you inspired, learning how to find what you need for you, for your family, to just be healthy, to have easy prepared foods, and to get into this habit of, starting out at least 3 times a week. I'm going to make a home cooked meal. As much as I'm in the kitchen, it's hard. It's really hard. So I get it.
I will say 2 things. One, 2019 sounds like, oh no, there's a pandemic. Right. But I think for us, our family, and I read it for a lot of families, it became this opportunity to try different things. Companies like your company, like Penzies, they started to think about how to level up the home cook so that now restaurants are closed or you're feeling nervous about going out because that stretched out for like 1.5 years at least.
Easily, yeah.
But you've gotten used to a certain type of dish and you can't follow complex recipes, but you still want to eat that. Our pandemic food was, I'd gotten cheesesteaks from Restaurant Depot, and Raj would call them steakums, and the girls were like, "What are steakums?" It's the only thing he could cook were steakums.
Veal and heat meat. We all grew up eating
when
it.
we grew up with
I loved it.
Then we started experimenting a little bit more with better quality spices. It's a game changer. And yours, to speak to quality, as you were talking about sourcing organic spices, and the best quality, and knowing what's in your food. Which matters to a lot of people, what you're eating, what's going into your body. It makes you a better business person, right? That to have healthy foods, to be able to eat in a way that keeps your mind sharp and keeps your body
Absolutely.
healthy. Like Indian restaurants, often, you go out to eat, you love it, but you pay for it later
Yum.
because all of the other stuff, the oils and something might not agree with you.
It's British Indian. It's not home cooked food. The British altered it. They made it less spices, more cream, heavier to make it suit their palate. And it's fine. It's their cuisine kind of, but that's what gets established as Indian food for the most part in this country. Now, there's awesome new restaurants coming about by Indian people that are taking it to a whole new level. But
still party food, right? Because home cooking is a different
home cooking is totally
thing completely.
Home cooking is so healthy. Now, you can make it unhealthy, but it is so easy for Indian home cooking to be extremely healthy. So many kinds of vegetables that you just would find hard to eat in the quantities that you can eat them in Indian food. Like if I make a head of cauliflower, it does not last. A whole head of cauliflower. We're only 3 people, one of whom is a child. It does not last. I make 2 pounds of spinach at a time because it, shrinks into the thing. And I just do a simple saute and the spices just make it so like you want to eat the whole thing. So it's just so easy that's what I'm trying to teach. It's very hard. The communication around that takes so much time and effort because you first got to break down what is Indian food. It's really not super spicy and you can always tailor down spice. So
the yogurt, add a little yogurt. It takes it because I'm not a spice person.
Right.
I will, just to illustrate like how easy it is.
Yeah.
I told you this story before. That our older daughter got engaged, Inshra, and we were looking at venues, and she had come with her fiance and fiance's mom, and we were out all day. And my mother-in-law and my sister very generously offered to do some cooking for the evening event. The family was coming to meet them. And you want to do something. I was like, okay, that's fine. My mother-in-law made the barbecue chicken, which is awesome. And she made a saffron rice biryani. And my sister made a whole fish. And we got home at 5, people coming at 7. I had fresh spinach in my fridge. I had cans of chickpeas and I had my moji masala and I made palak and I made chana and I was able to contribute in that very limited amount of time that I had to put together really great side dishes to complement, what everyone brought. Even if you can cook. And even if you do make Indian food, to be able to have an easy way to do it on a busy night, especially for working parents, is a game changer.
It's so funny. When we were starting this business, JD's like, we should really get this first generation, like us, population of people. I think this should be for non-South Asian people because they grew up with a certain kind of food. We're all, myself included, before I started this business, I was notorious at being so critical if something did not taste familiar. I was like, well, that's not really how my mom made it. And so that just doesn't taste as good to me. So just inadvertently, a lot of South Asian first generation are finding they're young working professionals and they're buying 10 at a time because guess what? They didn't learn to make it. In our culture, most of us were not really in the kitchen with our mother. I don't know what it is because I think it's a little different than other immigrant cultures, but most of my friends, they did not learn to cook. They learned later on their own because they wanted to learn, but they were not brought in. We were raised to be like, go work, go study, go get good grades, go get into a good college, go get a
Never thought about cooking during Ramadan. That was one of my jobs,
right,
to make tacos.
Exactly.
But that Red and White Better Homes and Gardens cookbook, somebody gave it to me when I went to law school, and I would just make basic recipes and eat SpaghettiOs. That was my whole thing. Young people maybe can't conceptualize is we didn't have Uber Eats. We didn't have internet. We didn't have a lot of these resources that make both cooking easier, but also balancing motherhood and career and all of it. I shared with you that part of what I'm building is the law firm I wish I had when I was young. And I could never have had it because we didn't have the technology that we have now. And the understanding of how this can work without being a toxic environment. One of the statistics I read was that 52% of law school classes are women, 19% of partners are women. And that attrition, it's from a lot of things, but
of course,
one of those things is balancing family. Whether it's elderly parents or young children, we can do better.
When I was in finance, when I started, probably 40% of that entry class was women. It was an effort to have some balance. By the time I was 30 years old, I was already at my second job. Not only did I not have peers, but if I walked into a meeting with 50 people, often I was the only woman. Those women are like, I am not doing this and trying to, going to have a family. Like, this is insane.
I hope that what we've learned in our generation is I look at young women who set boundaries and who do these things and go to therapy. Good for them. I love it. For us, certainly there were some great ones. Most of my mentors were men. I remember being, I think, 8 months pregnant. One of the few times I had to go to court. I'm in court and opposing counsel. He's really nice. He was like considered a shark of a lawyer, but being very kind because a lot of these men had wives at home who had kids. And so there was a kindness that they showed. And he was asking questions. And the attorney that was with him was a woman, and she started saying things like, well, I don't even know why. When I had kids, I was back in 2 weeks because I didn't want to miss work. And I was like, this is unnecessary, right? This is so unnecessary. So many experiences like that have also informed me in saying, let's build something where, hey, maybe we don't tear each other down.
Yes.
We take our experiences and we take what's good from it, and we learn and we teach others. And we learn from them things that are different now. And how can we become a culture where we all are able to contribute in the same way?
Yes.
And I think businesses like yours, it really is part of the solution, is having ways to really do things at a high level. Because we don't always think about is women who operate at a high level, just like what you said, we like to do everything at that same high level.
Right.
I don't want to be a terrible cook. If I'm an excellent lawyer, I also want to be an excellent cook.
Right.
And I can be, but it's a heck of a lot easier if I have my moji masala to rely on when I get home.
That's the hope, because, it's interesting with spices. They're healthy, like you said, and we use organic spices, and they're flavorful. And so you start to learn, wow, spice creates flavor, and when you have that flavor, you don't have to do 100 other things. You don't have to put 87 ingredients. You can add fresh garlic. Go for it. You have it, you like it, add it in. You do not need to do it. You just need like 3 things to make this dish, and if you want to make it even more special, go for it. Simplicity is the key. And also, to your point, I'm learning for myself, for my weekday meals, good enough is delicious. If you have some techniques and you have the right ingredients, does not have to be perfect because it will still be delicious. Like I made dinner the other night. We sat down, the 3 of us. They devoured it. It's like the best feeling because it's just good, And it took me like 30 minutes to make what I made.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a real joy that comes from that. So now you look back, like I really believe that everything that's happened, good, bad, difficult, it brings you exactly to where you are. Even if I could go back and do things again, I don't know how much of it I would actually change. Are there things like that in your journey? If, 25-year-old Shireen is standing and looking ahead at what's coming, would you change any of it?
It's a good question, Mona. It's such a good question because I would come up with a list of things I would change. You have to ask the next question. Would I be able to handle all the consequences? It's not like you make a change and then everything's perfect. You sort of think like, well, what would I have done? I think I would have tried to get to a place emotionally where I would have told myself, I can have a family and work and do all of this at a high level. I can start my family earlier. I would have probably had more than 1 kid because I started when I did. I only had 1. And you're like, maybe I could have done 2 and 3 kids with a nanny and, I have a very supportive husband and we would have made it work. And I see the families that make it work. It's all about joy. You have to say to yourself, would I be that person? It's not as simple as like having the setup. Are you that person from the inside who can, capture the moment? And then you say, well, why can't I do that now? Nothing's perfect. So you sort of end, like, to your point, yes, you don't have to change everything when you realize that it all comes from inward of just being like, it's all great. It's all good. I can handle this moment and I can enjoy the good ones and I can manage through the harder ones. And you're never going to escape that need of balance. And I think I lacked just feeling balanced, and there would have been a million things I could have done. I didn't need to go the other extreme in all my decision making to just have been a little more mentally settled with where I was in life. But that's wisdom. Everybody wants more wisdom, say youth is wasted on the youth and like wisdom doesn't exist for the youth.
I look sometimes, I look around and you think like, what would I have done differently? And again, so many things. Yeah. Because even that idea that I have to do it this way, we have a third. We adopted our son in 2020 and I thought so easy. He's 10. Not so easy. Boys, you have to give them 5 years more than you give girls, I think, as a general rule. But I had already started. I had launched my business. I was already doing things. it's a very different kind of parenting in the sense that to have a startup, which you are also doing, and you're not a stay-home mom per se, you have a very quickly growing startup. What you said about sometimes good enough is good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. Everyone's not going to love every choice you make. You're going to have to give up some things that you thought were non-negotiables when we were younger.
Yes.
And know that as I'm doing my best. Some days I'm going to do better than others. But at the end of the day, I'm moving my family forward. And I'm a person. I think I was telling my sister this yesterday, that sometimes you have to say to them that I also am a person who has feelings and has preferences, right? I have preferences. So I think, I don't know if you'd seen it, like I had this revelation that I don't have to sit in the middle seat, and I'm not going to on the plane. You guys can sit in a different row from me. I'm sitting in the window seat.
Right. It's such a good example.
Years of being in the middle seat and all of that.
What
But
I love about your situation is from the outside, you making your decision about having a third child and adopting and everything that went into that. I just feel like it's so completed your family. I see you there out in the world, but also managing all of these things. And by the way, your grown children who are adults still need you. Your husband still needs you. There's a confidence that you just have at this age, with this time, with having already raised two, that it doesn't matter that it's different. It's like, you've got it. And that feeling of doing things, being your own person, making your decisions, still raising children, there's just a certain confidence that you get as a human you will take for granted. You have a confidence of being a way you are in the world. Like for me, I have my day. I have a partner, like I make lunch. JD does the breakfast. JD takes her to school. We have our work day. I want to do pickup. I want to be there when she walks out the door, and I want to see her face, and I want to know right away, is she smiling because she had a good day? Is she not? Oh, she didn't have a good day. I want to know that information. I don't want someone else to tell me. I want to make her the snack that she eats after school, all of it. So like from 3 to 7, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do not work from 3 to 7. And then I have to do everything either before or after, or like get up early or whatever. And again, I've compartmentalized. I'm a working mom from like 8 to 2:30. I'm a stay-at-home mom pretty much from 2:30 to 7. And that really works for me. And it's so satisfying. Has my business evolved at a fraction of the rate it should be going? Yes. And by the way, I wouldn't even call them competitors. All the people, they're really peers. I don't know them that well. They're young. They're in their 20s, because you can do these crazy, amazing things now in your 20s. Like people did not do when I was growing up. You read on Instagram, maybe like thinking about families and starting to really wrangle with all the challenges. But like up until this point, it's been like, wow, these are like 20-somethings, maybe moving into 30-somethings who I'm quote unquote competing with or in the same category with. I'm doing 1/10 of the things I need to be doing where I know I will see success if I do these things. Maybe not a 10th, maybe a half. And then JD's more at 80 because of just the way I want to be there after school. And then he comes by 5 and then he goes back to work. We want everything.
Exactly. We want everything. I think also when I look at my peers, I went to law school with a lot of people, and I've come up with a lot of attorneys. And really in this last year, I think there's this mentality that you have to go to big law, you have to work 80 hours a week in order to be a partner, you have to do, XYZ, this is the way to practice law. We did do some of the things, right? Like it's not that you can just drop off completely. I got a master's in tax. I had the same schedule. I worked like crazy. I would drop them off, go to work, and leave by 4, to so many long faces and complaints at 4 o'clock from everybody who had just one more question, or why can't your 12-year-old take an Uber, and all of it. And I would leave, and sometimes I would have to come back with them. I had a desk where they would sleep under sometimes, and we did all of these things. It's not that we were able to just really compartmentalize.
Right.
It's always a juggle. And it really heartens me to see so many women embracing that. And when I look around, I'm actually okay. I'm not that far behind my peers. No. I'm watching my peers drop out of big law because this is not working for them.
Yeah.
They worked and worked and worked, and you're still not partner because you didn't do enough. Yeah. You're having health conditions because you're working so many hours and you're not taking care of yourself. You can't take an hour to go work out because your productivity goals are so high. It makes me sad in some ways, but it also strengthens my resolve that the way we are doing it is the way of the future.
Yes.
This is how people who refuse to not have boundaries. And that is this next generation. They are not going to do what you and I did. They're not doing it. Thank God. But we have to also show them how to keep the quality of the work.
I started thinking that about a little bit, and I'm like, you know, especially as you get older, you have a sense of mortality that's very different. And I'm like, everything you do every day, if I'm doing something for work, there should be some element of joy in it. I have goals. You need to have joy alongside your goals. You cannot give up the joy. And joy can be little. The pleasure of seeing my daughter, that gives me so much joy to just see her and pick her up from school. Even if she's in a bad mood, that I'm good. Like, I'm good giving up those 4 hours not working. I will never remember my to-do list, but I will always remember how I felt when I saw her. Now, everyone doesn't need that. So it's always about figuring out in everything you're doing, I need daily joy, not like reward joy later.
Even further, Shireen, with alignment with everything. I was kind of saying, like, it seems like this big subtweet that only people I'm aligned with. There's that, yes. Right. But also, you open your underwear drawer and there's something you bought, but they just didn't work. Trash. Right. Just throw them. I am not aligned with this. This does not work for me and I'm never going to wear it. It's out. And that kind of alignment, that gives me joy. But also waking up at 5 a.m. and thinking about my tech stack and something that just made sense, that gives me joy.
Right. Exactly. Right? You're like excited, right? It's
yeah. And that's how it should be. I don't have Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
I'm never worried anymore. The stress is probably 10 times more having your own business and having to be the one that funds payroll. But there's so much joy in building something.
Business is hard. Food is hard. Trying to create a retail, it's all hard. But you're like, I have created something. I have actually put something in the world. And to your point originally about my mom, like, that was never my goal in life, but to be in a place where I am putting my mom's food in the world, like my mom who like did not know how to cook, by the way, when she first left her home, had never fended for herself in any way. She came from this large, loving, caring, nurturing family that she was the only girl of 5. It was just very different for her. Her journey of being an independent immigrant wife and mother who can make this amazing food was not natural. It was so learned. So much went into getting herself to that place, and she's a joyful person, so she was able.
She's the best.
A very joyful person. I feel like I'm not just putting her food in the world. I'm taking her whole experience as like this young girl, basically, barely a woman, who had to change her whole life, and this food journey was a big part of it. My mother's way of retaliating against having to move and having to leave her home was that she only eats Kashmiri food. She will eat a baked potato if we go out for a steak. She doesn't complain. But she's like, I will not eat other food. I will not learn to like other food. I will not cook other food.
It seems like that's a very Kashmiri trait. I took a bar review class, we were doing the MPRE, like this little test with your cousin, Sohail.
Yes.
And I remember your aunt, she sent us for lunchtime. She sent us both containers of Kashmiri food for lunch.
Right.
So here we are at bar review. She's like, she heard I was there too, and she was like, oh no, she can't eat the food there.
She is an amazing cook.
She's an amazing cook.
She would be like the Martha Stewart of the immigrant Kashmiri world if she ever.
Right. Oh, do you know how I learned to make Kashmiri food? We'd pretend to read a book and sit in the kitchen and read a book and watch my mother-in-law cook and see what she's not telling me that yes, that's the book. But it's still a little different, right? But I just watched her. Like, I would be reading, minding my own business because she's always cooking. And I was like, oh, you put that in the keema? Yeah. You never said that when you were...
I got you.
Yeah. No. And I love it. I love that you have this whole evolution in your journey. And all of us have that. If we're lucky, our career journey and our life journey, they go together and we are always able to keep iterating and becoming that next version of ourselves. And I think for any women who may be listening, who are afraid, who are wondering what happens if I let go of that, the universe rewards you. You like to open it up and do things you're aligned with and keep moving. Even this, like you say, you keep saying like it wasn't the reason you did it, but wow, like, honoring where you came from. We don't like throw around legacy, but really, truly, like this incredible gift to future generations of Qadris of Safia Auntie's food, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, how incredible. You were telling me you had this plan of expanding. Are you still thinking that?
100%. It's just like, we already have 14 SKUs. And by the way, like, for example, my Khalda auntie, she's Pakistani, and she's so able to actually give me a real recipe for the dish. It was all written out and typed. It was like amazing. I've made it a few times. It's great. I'm going to put that out in the world, and it's going to be called the Auntie's Biryani. We just have so many SKUs, and we're still trying to expand. So we're trying, there's a backlog. Some of them are already complete with the packets, with the recipes, but it's like you can't push forward. But that is my goal. Being Kashmiri, I always felt like there's this thing called India, and then there's Kashmir, which is like this anomaly, this disputed area. There's like this cohesive thing called India. And then when I was about 21 or 22, I traveled through India for the first time. I had only been to like Delhi and Kashmir. It really struck me how regional it was, like how small it was. Wherever you went, it was just that world. And then I started to really understand the politics of trying to create this Indian nationality and this nationalism, because it is so fractionalized that if you're a ruler, you need some cohesiveness. But then you go to the South and you're like, for the love of God, I can only communicate with everybody if we all speak English. Nobody speaks the same language anywhere. And even dialects, and like the whole half the country can't watch a Bollywood movie because they don't speak the language. I mean, if you really process it that way, you're like, what does that say? And then the food diversity, forget the religious diversity, the culture. You have different foods if you're on the water, if you're inland. But the food diversity blew me away. Like
South Indian, right? It's the only Indian food Raj will eat outside is masala dosa, because it's so different. It's
so spicy. First of all, I couldn't even handle I don't know what they use. I'm like, I am getting heartburn. I feel like what happens to white people when they eat it, like my mom's food,
Amazing, yeah.
And so I just felt like, this is weird. Like, what is this? This is not a Kashmiri experience. This is actually an Indian experience. It's a pluralist society that has been suppressed. And then fast forward, when I was like conceptualizing this, everyone's like, oh, do it just Kashmiri. It's such a unique thing. People have this idea. First of all, of course it'll be Kashmiri because that's what I know. That's what I've learned to cook. Yeah. The vision for me is I've always been very embracing of like pluralist kind of like feelings. Obviously I am in an interfaith marriage, but even before that, just like in the way I made friends. Yeah. I love the idea of like, I have this, you have this, here's what's similar, here's what's different, let me share in your difference. That is what is just like exciting to me. And so that is really what I want to do with the food. So like I really was trained by my mom in Kashmiri food, but here's the difference. Like people say, oh, it's like Italian regional. It's different. In Italy, someone from the South probably knows how to make a Northern Italian dish. I made Rogan Josh for some friends of mine who are Indian. They're from Bombay. They had quote unquote Rogan Josh, but it was never like, they were like, what is this? And I'm like, it's Rogan Josh. It is a normal experience for Indian people to eat other foods of other regions and feel clueless about it. I think that's a little unique. I'm so inspired. We'll get there and we'll work on, and I want it to be authentic the way, like I want aunties and moms recipes. I am already reaching out to my Gujarati friends and my Bombay friends and trying to figure out which ones will work in a moji masala type packet. This is our bestseller. This is a tandoori chicken. And then, so, it has a description of what it is. It's one packet, one dish. And then you flip it over, and then there's a shopping list, and then a QR code that goes to the recipe in the video. So everything's online. It's very simple and easy. You use the whole packet to make a dish, and then there's like chicken curry, there's dal, there's gobi, there's aloo. Yeah, so I mean,
I love it. And you have the packages. I love it. You can get the vegetarian package, you can get the meat package.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to do it. One thing we did forget to talk about that we always talk about is some of the business and legal parts of this. Mm-hmm. So when you were starting this up, completely new industry, what did you have to think about? Like, where did you start with all of that? Have you trademarked some of the recipes?
We did that right away. JD's obsessed with like owning the, like all of that kind of stuff. Fortunately, that part, you have to make sure it's not there. What's funny? All of this stuff, I will say in general, it's not hard, but when you know nothing, it's hard, right? Because you learn stuff, but you're like, is that everything? Is that all I have to do? And so we did trademark, like registered trademark, the way we are. Moji masala, this part here. And we were a little nervous because the word masala is in it, but it's not just masala. Obviously masala, it's moji masala. Moji means mom in Kashmiri. It's the equivalent of amma, I guess, like in Hindi. That was a little expensive, if I recall. And I believe we did decide to do a lawyer to do it properly. And it was like a fixed fee. And that was the one thing we just used professional help with. The rest of it, I really learned, like with food, it's all about making sure you have the right licenses, what kind of license. And what I found was, and this was true in New York and here, is there was incredible support when you call the Department of Ag or you call like the city food administration part of it. They like answer the phone and then answer your questions and then show you what to do. So there was crazy small business support from the local government, both in New York City and in Philadelphia.
That's wonderful. And it's in their best interest, right?
Yeah, so I highly, if you're thinking of doing anything, like call the city or the town you're in, and
your Chamber of Commerce, they know everybody.
These people are out there to help small business. There is a lot of infrastructure out there to help small business. And then I felt confident because these were the people who in the end would approve things. So
many resources. And, you know, here in Maryland, we have through the SBA, the Maryland Women's Business Development Center, and, you know, all of these different organizations. And they have these really specific, like if you want a food truck, seminars that you can come out to and learn everything you need to learn. And I think part of it is that, right? Like even having your business community and people that you can, I love that you referred to them as peers and colleagues versus competitors, because the people who are best positioned to remind you of what you need to do or what the process is like are the people who have already done it.
And you know what I love? Everyone who has done something in Indian food of some kind came up very inspired by something totally different. So it's so interesting. Yeah. There's one woman, Diaspora Spices, she just wanted to pay the farmers in India a living wage. That's her goal. That's still her own goal. Like she's so mission oriented. There's people who are just doing like condiments, Brooklyn Deli, just really trying to capture that condiment vibe in that, and similar stuff. You know, and there's people who are like, I want quick and easy and fast with a little Indian inspiration, and they're doing that. So to me, I'm like, wow, these are all people broadening the experience of eating Indian food, which I love. You know, it makes space for everybody. It allows more shelf space. There's something more visible to see when you go to the grocery store.
Something for everyone, right? And the tea companies, right? I'm Bengali.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
much.
What is it? Calcutta? Is it
Calcutta, yeah.
Calcutta Tea Company. It's so good. You know, and it takes you back, like the little clay pots of tea. It's a vacation in a cup, even for Indian food. Yeah. The way that food can transport you, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Shireen, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to link the show notes and the website and all of that for anybody who wants it. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
You're listening to the Not Your Lawyer podcast with Mona Reza.